the combination of it. So without any further introducing, welcome Isak.
Thank you, Yasmina. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it a lot. So I'm actually very excited to talk about this topic. And the reason why is I feel that once you learn about what a healthy diet is and how much it can do for you, it kind of changes your outlook on life. I think it's a very common belief that people hold where they think that when I die, it's going to be up to my genes. Okay? It's not something that I have control over. Whatever my genes say that I have is the way that I'm going to go out. And your life is basically controlled by your genes, and you don't have too much control over it. But if you realize, what is a healthy diet and how much it can impact you, it actually gives you a really freeing feeling. You'll feel much better about your life, and you'll feel like you'll have a lot more control over what's going to happen in your life. And that's why I think this is actually such an important topic. And so I've labeled it The Truth About a Healthy Diet. Because a lot of people, you can probably ask 10 people, and 10 different people will give you 10 different responses on what is a healthy diet. So there's a bit of confusion on that topic. But I'm going to try and help us all understand, what is healthy, what is a healthy food, what isn't a healthy food, and just why exactly isn't something healthy, okay, and what we can do to eat healthy things and why it's healthy. All right, so some of the things we'll cover today. Oh, I forgot my clicker. So some of the things that we'll cover today. All right. So the first thing, okay, what exactly makes a food healthy or unhealthy? Okay, so you've got to think about every single time that you put something into your mouth, you have to ask yourself the question, is this improving my quality of life or decreasing my quality of life? What is it doing to my body when I take this bite of food? So I would say like the three main factors in regards to what you should ask yourself when you eat something, is it improving my quality of life, my longevity of life, and my health span? Because somebody can live 80 years old, but they can have like a chronic health disease for that last 20 years, and they won't really have a good health span. So that's the term for that. So a real nice way to look at it is there are some foods that have healthy things in them, but they also come with bad things. For example, maybe you can say like a processed nut bar. It has nuts in it. We know nuts are healthy, but it also has chocolate and sugar and all kinds of things. So there is something healthy in it, but it's not completely healthy for you. It has things that will hurt your body. So you want to make sure that when you're eating something, it only adds to your body. It doesn't take away from you in any way. So that's a really important distinction. And so before we start, let's look at where exactly we are now. So the leading causes of death currently in the world is number one, cardiovascular disease, which is heart disease, stroke, that type of thing. And then second, you have cancers. And most of those top diseases are chronic lifestyle diseases. But number one and two by far is cardiovascular disease and cancers. Generally, some of the things that come to our mind when we think about dying maybe is getting into a car crash or somebody attacking you or any drowning, for example. Those are the things that we're scared of potentially, but the likelihood that we're going to die from any of these things is obviously the top two, which is cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, and cancers. And those two are the ones that we can control the most by diet. Right? And that's why diet is so important, because I think the stat is 1/3 of people will die of cancer in Australia. So it's very prevalent, and a lot of people will suffer from it. So if you have the ability not to go through that in your life, I think that's something very important, maybe the most important thing that you could know. All right, so let's first take a look at a simple comparison between two foods. And I want you guys to pay attention to three particular nutrients and the differences between them both. So we can see here, okay, so this is 100 grams of steak and 100 grams of cooked black beans. A lot of people have a comparison with 100 grams of uncooked black beans. That's not entirely accurate. This is cooked beans. So the three big differences that you can probably see here is the steak has a higher protein content. The steak has much more cholesterol and much more saturated fat. Okay, so those are the three things that separate like plant foods from animal foods. And we'll go into why those three nutrients make the biggest difference in getting heart disease or getting cancer. Not only that, obviously black beans, is low in protein, low in cholesterol, and low in saturated fat, but it's also high in fiber, high in nutrients, and low in cholesterol and low in calories. Okay, so that's a really important difference, and we're going to go into how that affects us later. But let's just have that in our mind before we go forward. So the three nutrients that meat has that is totally different to plants. If anyone can name them for me, I'll start the first one: cholesterol, and the other two. Saturated fat and protein, that's right. Okay, so how do we know that cholesterol promotes heart disease? Okay, so we saw that heart disease is the biggest killer in Western countries, okay? And then we saw that the beans don't have any cholesterol, but the steak does have cholesterol, okay? So how do we know that cholesterol actually gives us heart disease? So if you go through, you go on Google Scholar, which shows you studies, and you put in cholesterol, you find heaps and heaps of studies that will tell you that having a higher LDL cholesterol will increase your chance of heart disease. But many people can say that, there are different factors in the studies that have been conducted, and it's not entirely accurate. But this study, in particular, is very interesting because what it did is it basically compared African Americans that had a gene mutation versus African Americans that didn't have a gene mutation. And the only difference was that the group that had a mutation had lower LDL cholesterol, just naturally, based off the gene. And so simply put, just because they had lower cholesterol, they ate exactly the same, they had exactly the same lifestyle, it was the same group of people, just one had the mutation and the other didn't. And basically the group that had lower cholesterol because of the mutation had 88% less reduction in cardiovascular disease. So eating all the same foods, they were just lucky enough to have a mutation, they had 88% less chance of dying from what we saw was the #1 killer in the world, basically. So that's pretty profound. So I think that's a very interesting study that kind of highlights why exactly we don't want to be eating too much cholesterol. So then the next question is, what foods actually raise cholesterol? Okay. So there's like some controversy around the fact that eating cholesterol doesn't raise your cholesterol. But we can clearly see that if we eat an egg and you take a blood test and you measure your cholesterol before and after eating the egg, you'll see that your cholesterol rises, directly after eating the egg. And it's a pretty predictable response. So we can see when we eat cholesterol, our cholesterol goes up. And as we know, cholesterol is one of the easiest ways that we can tell if we're going to get a heart attack, if we have high cholesterol or low cholesterol. And as we know, cholesterol is only found in animal foods. There's no cholesterol in any other foods that doesn't come from an animal. Like no plant foods have cholesterol. And on top of that, the other two nutrients that we looked at, protein and saturated fat, they only come from animals as well. And those two are implicated in cancer and heart disease as well. All right, so this is just the most common sources of cholesterol in the American diet. So we can see that eggs are #1, chicken is #2, beef, burgers, basically all animal products that we get there. All right, so you can see as we go further through this that only animal foods basically have the nutrients in them that give us our two leading killers, which is heart disease and cancer. Okay, so what about cancer? We've talked a little bit about heart disease. Let's look at cancer and how what we eat affects our chances to get cancer. So I don't know if many of you have heard about this study. It's called the China study. And so the China study is the largest ever observational nutritional study done in the world. And the background on it is after World War II, China started to recover and they started to become more affluent. And they realized that their citizens started to get the chronic diseases. Their citizens started to drop dead of heart disease, they were getting cancers, they were getting diabetes, they were getting Alzheimer's. So the Chinese government wanted to conduct an investigation into why exactly our population was getting sick. And so they hired T. Colin Campbell, who was a researcher at Cornell University, and he conducted this study. It was, like I said, the largest ever nutritional study that's been done. And so they found some very interesting correlations. And so people say correlation doesn't equal causation, but on a large scale like this, it's definitely something to consider. So they basically found that the rural areas of China, compared to the more affluent areas of China in the city, had very different rates of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And because it was focused on nutrition, they basically found... Can I get some water, please? Excuse me. So they observed that the rural populations that basically lived in poverty could not afford to eat animal protein and animal fat. They relied more excuse me. So the rural populations, they basically couldn't afford to eat the same diet that the richer people in the cities ate. So they basically noticed in their study that the people that were getting the diseases were the people who lived in the more affluent areas and could afford to eat more animal protein. And they found a very, a statistically significant correlation between eating more animal protein and your chances of getting cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And it was very clear. Like, there's something in science called statistical significance. And so all that basically means is when you put all the numbers together, it's not random, it's not by chance. There's a clear correlation between eating more animal protein and your chance of getting diabetes and heart disease and cancer going up. And it was dose dependent. So the more you ate, the more you had. And it was a very good study because they had all these different populations and areas of China, because China's split into districts, and they can compare ones that had no animal protein versus ones that had a little bit versus ones that had a lot. And so they basically saw that the more you ate, the higher the chance of you getting sick. And this is just one of the charts that they came out, and they compared like other countries around the world. And so they basically showed animal protein intake and fat intake, and that kind of goes together, because something that's important to know is all animal foods have a high fat content. Even chicken breast has a decent amount of fat in it. So there is no animal food that is low fat. So animal protein and animal fat goes together. All right? And so you can see here at the bottom, you have countries that eat less animal protein. Okay? You can see the poorer countries, the Asian countries, some of the European countries. And then you can see towards the top, you have all the Western countries. And as you saw before, that chart that I showed, the top killers in Western countries are heart disease and cancer. And you can see here, there's a clear connection between breast cancer and animal protein intake in countries where that's high. So when you see something like that, it definitely should make you question and start to look into it more yourself. And so something that's important to note is that little number there, the R equals 0.94. That's also like a science statistic thing. And the higher it is, the stronger the relationship between the animal protein and the breast cancer. So it's a very strong relationship. And here's something else from the study, and they basically showed that, the amount of food that you ate in relation to getting, colon cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and the bottom one relates to cardiovascular disease, heart disease. And so you can see the more rice, maize, and beans that you eat, the lower your chance of getting any of these cancers and heart disease. Versus, if you see all the animal foods here, you have a higher chance of getting cancers, okay? And so this is what they found in that study. It was the largest one that's ever been done, and it was quite clear from their study that the more animal foods you eat, the higher the chance of you getting a chronic disease, okay, like cancer or heart disease, which is the one that's most likely to kill you. All right? So Now that we've gone over what's unhealthy, why it's unhealthy, okay, let's look at what is healthy and how. So I want you guys to go back to that slide that we looked at with the beans versus the animal foods, where we saw that the beans had a lot more fiber, it had a lot more nutrients and calcium, magnesium, that type of thing, antioxidants, and it was lower in protein. All right, so we can see that plant foods, when studied, actually have the potential to fight off cancer, okay? And so actually the best food that was found to fight cancer, and that's in regards to prostate cancer, was flax seeds. So you can see here in this study, the top one is cancer cell death, and it showed that there was a group that had no flax seeds, and there was a group that had flax seeds. And so the group that was eating flax seeds, the cancer tumor growth rate was actually going down, and that's the top graph there. And the bottom one, I believe, is the rate at which the cancer cells are dying. So you can see the cancer is getting smaller and the cells are dying at a faster rate compared to the group that was doing nothing. So you can see that even just eating the foods, particular foods, have an effect on your cancer. So there was also another big study done, that basically compared vegan diets to normal diets. And simply put, what they found was your breast cancer percentage was 50% lower, having a high fruit and veggie intake. Eggs and dairy seemed to be one of the foods that increased your cancer risk the most. And legumes, which are beans, were one of the foods that seemed to be the most protective against cancer. So another really important note is about antioxidants. So if we compare the steak to the beans, animal foods don't actually have any antioxidants. And we'll compare that in a slide later. Okay, but this study basically showed that the more antioxidants you eat, the lower your chance of heart disease. And it was in like a dose-dependent manner. So basically, the more you had, the lower your chance. It wasn't like once you got to a certain level, it stayed low. It was like as you kept going, your chance kept going down. And so once again, animal foods don't actually have any antioxidants. All right, so this is an antioxidant list to get a little comparison. Okay, so basically the worst plant food, iceberg lettuce, has like 17 units of antioxidants. And here you have, fish, eggs, Coke. The highest one is ox liver, 70 units of antioxidants. But a Snickers bar has 80. All right, so that's what the animal foods look like. What about the plant foods? So just take note, 80, and the iceberg lettuce, which is like the least nutritious plant that you can find, has 17. What about the most nutritious? Okay, over 6,000. Okay, so there's a massive, massive difference in the antioxidants that you can get from the healthiest plants. And at the bottom there, you have blueberries and things like that, apricots, and these are all very healthy and still amazing. But if you go throughout the plant kingdom, you'll find amla berries here, which have the highest antioxidant levels on Earth. So amla berries are extremely, extremely healthy because they have a very high level of antioxidants. And we saw that antioxidants reduced your chance of heart disease, okay, which is the most likely way any of us are going to die. So this was a study that was done comparing amla berries to statins for reducing your cholesterol. And we know from that previous thing that we looked at, that study that showed if you have low cholesterol, your chance of dying from heart disease is significantly lower. And so we can see in this study, it was diabetics, okay, and measuring their cholesterol. And so the AMLA groups had massive reductions in cholesterol, more than the cholesterol-lowering drugs. Okay, so that's an amazing stat. There's no drug on earth, like, as you know, pharmaceuticals is one of the most profitable industries on earth. And so if they couldn't come up with something, to beat a simple $2 berry, there must not be anything better. But it should be noted that that's the healthiest food that you can find, okay, as we looked at before. It's got the highest antioxidants anyway. It's called amla berries. You can buy it at any Indian shop. It's very healthy. So something else, okay, that no other way of eating has been shown. Okay, so a whole food plant-based diet, low in cholesterol, saturated fat, all the things that are in animal food, sorry. Okay, it's actually been shown to reverse heart disease. So this angiogram here, you can see here on the left that artery is actually getting smaller. And so when that artery gets smaller as a result of eating lots of cholesterol and lots of animal foods, your arteries start to get blocked. And slowly, 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 they start to look like that on the left picture. And eventually, something will happen, you'll be stressed or whatnot, and it'll get blocked just enough where the blood flow stops. And that's what's called a heart attack, okay? And that's technically the number one way that any of us will die in this country. And so they showed through a plant-based diet, without any cholesterol-lowering medication, after 32 months, okay, so about 3 years, they opened up the artery, okay? So there's no drug on earth that can do that. There's no other diet, there's no other way of eating, there's no other anything that can get these type of results. So even just on this alone, it should straight away become the default diet. The default way of eating should be something, high in plant foods, low in saturated fat, low in cholesterol. So a little bit of a side note, but weight loss is very important to everyone. All right, and being overweight is one of the ways that you can develop some of these diseases as well. So here's something really important to understand. When you eat meat and animal foods and processed foods, they have no fiber in them. So what's really important about fiber that only comes from plant foods is it has no calories. Your stomach doesn't absorb it, your small intestine doesn't absorb it. It goes all the way through, and it's good for your large intestine, it's good for your gut bacteria. So because it doesn't get counted as calories, it means that the plant foods are heavier and bigger with less calories. So you will eat more and be less full, okay, which means you're going to gain less weight. So if we look here, oil, 500 calories of oil, okay, the average diet that somebody should be eating is about 2,000 calories. So that much oil is almost 1/4, of what you should be eating. So it's very easy, if you eat a lot of oil, to get fat, okay, because your stomach has stretch receptors. Your stomach has all these stretch receptors, and if you're eating food that has no fiber, but high in calories, you don't have those stretch receptors to tell you that you're full. So you're going to keep overeating, and that's going to lead to you becoming fat in the long run. So you want to make sure that you're eating grains and beans and fruits and veggies. Look, a whole stomach of fruits and veggies is 500 calories. Very easy to lose weight like that. So, a really interesting stat with fiber that I bet you've never heard before. Okay, so the human gut, okay, if somebody asks you, where do you think is the highest concentration of bacteria in the whole world? You'll probably say, the bottom of the ocean, a sewage plant, something like that. But if I actually tell you that the highest concentration of bacteria in any one place is the human large intestine, it'd probably shock you, and that's true. And so as I was saying before, fiber doesn't get absorbed into your blood. It doesn't count as calories. It goes and it feeds the gut bacteria, which is the highest density of bacteria anywhere on Earth, is the human gut. And so fiber feeds that bacteria. And so that bacteria then produces what's called short-chain fatty acids. And we don't have, it's kind of like a new field, gut bacteria and all of that. And we don't have too much data on it yet in terms of how it works, but we do know they produce short-chain fatty acids, which are related to and correlated to much lower chances of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all of these things, okay? So, and fiber feeds that. And so once again, animal foods have no fiber. Only plant foods have fiber. So it's really important to note. And this study basically just showed the more fiber you ate, you had a 23% chance of dying from anything, 23% chance, lower chance of dying from anything versus people who ate less fiber. Okay. So now this is something called the Hispanic paradox. Okay, it's really, really interesting research that was done in America. And so what they found in America, they have Hispanic populations, the Latinos and all that type of thing. And for whatever reason, they seem to live longer than black people and white people, even though Latinos are the poorest, one of the poorest people in America. So generally, if you're more poor in a Western country, your chance of dying from those diseases is higher. But for whatever reason, they couldn't figure it out. Hispanic people live longer, okay? And so they did heaps of studies. They tried to, is it this, is it that? And it turns out, actually, the reason why they live so much longer is because they eat more black beans, because Mexican food has a lot of black beans in it. And not just that, they eat a lot more black beans and corn, corn tortillas and all that type of thing. So even though they ate the same amount of meat, the same amount of everything, just by eating those extra beans, it gave such a powerful protective effect that they lived longer than people who were better well off than them, people who are richer. And so just by eating those beans, they were able to live longer and reduce their chance of heart disease and cancer. And so it goes back to that comparison that we made. The steak has cholesterol, saturated fat. The beans have nutrients and fiber. All right. So then we have something called the blue zones. So these are the 5 areas in the world where people regularly live over 100. There's only 5 of these places in the world. And so you can see, you have Okinawa, Japan, you have Ikaria, Greece, Sardinia, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Loma Linda in California. You wouldn't expect that one. You would think that, for example, they're in Japan, there's heaps of nature there, they're outdoors, there's no pollution, they have a better way of life, there's more sun, that's what people might say. Okay, but, obviously these places have been studied, and the same pattern has emerged from all 5 of those areas. And so the three main ones is a whole food plant-based diet, as we've been talking about, low in cholesterol, low in saturated fat, low in protein, and then exercise, regular daily exercise, and having like a social community and purpose. They eat slightly differently, but overall, it's still a plant-based diet. So this is the Okinawan diet, okay? They had very low chances of dying from a chronic disease, and they lived very long. So people who ate like this regularly lived over 100, more than anywhere else in the world, okay? So what did they eat, okay? Now remember, we've been talking about antioxidants, we've been talking about fiber, we've been talking about not eating a lot of cholesterol, we've been talking about not eating a lot of saturated fat. So now let's look at a population that doesn't really die from cancer or heart disease, or gets it much less, and they have one of the longest living, they live very long, okay, one of the longest living places in the world. So 69% of their diet comes from purple sweet potatoes, okay? So what are purple sweet potatoes very high in? All right, so the 2 things that they're very high in is antioxidants, okay, and fiber. So normal sweet potatoes don't have as much antioxidants. You can see they're purple, and they have that purple color because of the antioxidants. Just like blueberries, it's that same chemical, that same antioxidant that gives them that rich color. So you can see that it was something high in fiber, high in antioxidants, high in starch. They ate a lot of rice, wheat, barley, legumes, vegetables and fruit, nuts and seeds. And you can see the fish, meat, eggs, and dairy are very, very low in their diet, like 1%, less than 1%, 2%. So if you want to live a long time and be very healthy and not die, have a good quality of life, not die from any diseases or anything like that, then this is roughly what your diet should look like. All right, so these are just the chances compared to Japan, US, and Okinawa. You can see that their chances of getting cancer are much lower, and their chance of heart disease are much lower as well. And so, now another really interesting point. So people often say that in Okinawa, they live so long because they have a natural lifestyle. They don't live in a modern world. But very interestingly, one of the blue zones is an Adventist town in Loma Linda, California. And as you know, like part of being an Adventist is the health message and eating like a plant-based diet. And so actually, out of all the blue zones, the Adventist group had the highest life expectancy on average. So 87 for men, 89 for women, pretty astounding. And so what's really important there is they live in a modern world. So people will often say, there's plastic and chemicals and this and that, that's going to affect your health. But you can see that despite all of that, they actually live longer than the people in Japan who live, out in nature, or live like a less civilized life, as people would say. They're exposed to all the modern things and pollution and whatnot, yet they actually have the highest life expectancy. So it's very interesting. So eating like this, okay, to get those type of results, what would it look like? Vaguely something like this. You can see that there's lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of fiber. Honestly, it's not too important. You should just eat what you like. The most important way to eat like this is to find the things you like and repeat them over and over again. There's no point forcing yourself to eat something that you don't like. So find the healthy plant foods that have a lot of antioxidants, a lot of fiber, and you're going to be all right. And then, of course, you want to limit your animal food. So it goes back to that question that we asked ourselves at the beginning. When you eat something, is it going to help me or hurt me? So, for example, let's look at meat. It does have protein in it. Okay, protein can help you. It has some benefits, but it has a lot of bad stuff in it. So maybe if you're protein deprived and you haven't eaten in 2 weeks, yeah, the meat's going to be good for you. But if you're eating meat regularly, you have protein in your diet, it's got a lot of bad stuff in it, the saturated fat and the cholesterol, okay? Whereas something like a blueberry has nothing negative in it for you. It will only make you healthier, okay? And so we'll end with this quote. So like I was saying at the start, our genes may load the gun, okay, but our lifestyle pulls the trigger. You don't have to think that your life is destined, the way that you're going to die is destined. It's actually all in your power. And you'll make that decision 3 times a day, every day for the rest of your life. And as long as you know what decision it is that you have to make, then you have the ability to change your life in the most important way possible. So I hope you all learned something from this, and thanks a lot for listening. Yep, so we'll have some time for questions, if anyone has any questions.
What was that berry that you mentioned with the really high antioxidants?
Amla berries.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. It's an Indian thing. It's AMLA. Amla, yeah. So that's technically the healthiest berry. Any other questions?
Comes in a powder too. You can just put it in a smoothie if you want.
Any other questions?
I've heard that the animal protein, especially egg, is actually quite good for the brain. Would that be true?
So the thing is, the differences in protein between plant foods and animal foods is actually the amino acid ratios. So proteins are made of amino acids. And so egg protein, will have a different amino acid ratio to a plant protein. And some of those amino acids that are potentially higher in eggs do have benefits. They do have benefits, but they also have negatives. And so, like I was saying before, you want something that only helps you when you eat it. So eggs do have some nutrients in them, they do, but they're also the highest source of cholesterol. So if you're eating, a few eggs here and there, yeah, it's okay. But would I be eating it as like a brain health food? I think there's better ways to get those amino acids, But something else that's really important to note that I wanted to touch on is the amino acids that are high in animal foods, like leucine, for example. They do have benefits, but one of the things they do is they signal your body to grow. And so if you're signaling your body to grow continuously by eating those animal foods, that's one of the things that increases your risk of cancer, because you're signaling to your body to grow things. Okay, so it does have benefits, but you got to consider like your overall diet. Any other questions? Okay, well, if there's no more questions, then yeah, that'll be all. Thank you so much.
We will now have some testimonials. I have one that's on a video. It's a 3-minute video, and after that, we have a sister here that will also be giving a testimony. So first, we'll see the video one, and then after, Sister Susanna, she will give us a testimony about her daughter.
Hi, my name's Liam. I'm going to share with you a story where I, due to a health issue I was having, I ended up losing a lot of muscle, and then when my health was up for it, I wanted to try to build up muscle again, but at the time I was on a plant-based diet, not eating any meat, dairy or eggs, and I still am to this day. And I just wanted to share with you that it is possible to build muscle without having to eat any meat, dairy or eggs in order to do so. And I think what's important is that it's important to include plant-based foods that are high in protein, such as legumes and nuts and quinoa. I eat a lot of quinoa and buckwheat, which is a complete protein. In regards to legumes such as lentils or red kidney beans or black beans, they're not a complete protein, but it's good for them it's good to combine those foods with other plant-based foods that complement their amino acids. So for example, if you eat red kidney beans or black beans with rice, like brown rice, for example, those two different food groups, the amino acids of each group complement each other and complete one another. And I don't have brown rice in my diet, but I do eat lots of red kidney beans and black beans. And what I've used instead of eating brown rice is actually this brown rice protein powder over here, done by Eden Health Foods, and it's a really healthy protein powder, and I'm really grateful to have come across it. And yeah, it helps to make sure that I get enough protein in my body, so I've got enough protein to build muscle and do my exercise healthily. And I also supplement on some multivitamins and minerals supplements, including ones that include vitamin B12 in it, because that's a vitamin that it can be a bit difficult to get on a diet without meat, dairy and eggs. But I think it's important to, if while meat has its upsides of having a lot of good vitamins and minerals in it that people on a plant-based diet can sometimes be deficient on if they're not careful enough, it's good to eat a large variety of plant-based foods to help make sure you are getting all the nutrients you need. And if you need to get some supplements, especially B12, it's a great idea to do so.
Okay, if we can invite Sister Susanna to come up the front, and I will be translating her testimony. Her daughter, Anastasia, she had an issue with her legs. I think it's legs, yeah?
Je.
Her feet, legs.
Mm.
And yeah, you can... ja ću te prevesti.
Da, moja ćerka prije godinu dana otprilike je dobila autoimunu bolest koja se zove morfija.
Okay, my daughter, who about a year ago got a disease, an autoimmune disease called morphia.
To je bolest od familija, to jest od skleroderme, kožna bolest.
It's a family of skin diseases, a scleroderm disease of skin. Yeah.
Da. To se pojavilo kao u vidu modrice.
It looked like a bruise when it appeared.
Mi smo sačekali da malo prođe, mislili smo da se udarila negdje, da će to proći, međutim to je išlo sve veće.
So we thought it was just a bruise, it's going to go away, and we were waiting for it, but it just got bigger.
Posjećivali smo razne doktore, svi su iznenađeno gledali, čudili se i govorili kako nikada to nisu vidjeli.
So we went to visit various doctors and they all said, we've never seen this before.
Koristili smo kreme, počeli smo koristimo kreme koje sadrže kortikosteroide.
So we started to use creams which had corticosteroids in them.
Nije dalo nekog rezultata.
We didn't get very good results for that.
I onda smo nakon dužeg vremena dobili appointment za biopsiju.
So after a while we got an appointment for a biopsy.
Onda smo tada brzo saznali da je to ta bolest, morfija.
Then we found out what the autoimmune disease was.
I jedini
Morfija.
način koji ovdje tretiraju svuda u svetu je metatraksat.
And so what they usually prescribe is methotrexate, which is
To je jedna vrsta kao kemoterapije u vidu tablete.
it's a type of chemotherapy but in tablet form.
Koja dovodi imunni sistem kao resetuje.
It reduces your immune system or
Da.
resets it.
Kao resetuje, kako se kaže?
It suppresses your immune system. Sorry.
Mi smo dali sebi vremena da razmislimo šta ćemo i kako ćemo, jer nismo bili srećni da na taj način je lečimo, pošto imala je tada 10-11 godina.
So we wanted to think about it because we didn't want her to have this kind of a treatment. She was only 10 or 11 years old at the time.
Počeli smo da istražujemo dugo vremena i onda smo odlučili da počnemo da menjamo način ishrane, da tražimo uzrok.
So we started to look at different options and we decided we're going to change her diet.
I posetili smo jednu doktoricu koja se bavi prirodnom medicinom.
We visited a doctor who was using natural therapies.
Ona radi inače sa teškim oboljenjima, kancer i autoimune bolesti.
So she works with diseases such as cancer and autoimmune diseases.
Vodila nas je kroz sve i mi smo onda pronašli uzrok.
So she brought us through the stages and we finally found the cause.
I krenuli smo sa promjenom ishrane, sa jakim dozama vitamina kako bi radili detoks njenog tela.
So we changed her diet and increased her vitamin intake so that we could get to better outcome.
Da se vratim na početku, to što se pojavilo na njenoj nozi, to je bilo jako tvrdo, to je kolagen koji se skuplja ispod kože i tkiva.
So going back to her condition, when you touch the place, it was very hard. It was a collagen type of a disease.
Nakon nekog vremena je počelo da vraća prirodniju boju, nakon promjene dijete.
So after she changed her diet, the color of the skin started to become more natural.
I počelo da bude mekše.
And it was softer.
Mi još uvijek radimo na tome, na njenom izlečenju, nije gotovo. Nadamo se naravno uz Božju pomoć.
We are still working on her condition. It hasn't finished as yet, but with God's help.
Ali definitivno se ona bolje osjeća.
But she's definitely feeling much better.
dok smo mi posjećivali komercijalnu medicinu, oni su nas jako puno uplašili i to zaista može da bude tako kao što su oni rekli tada.
So when we were visiting the conventional treatments, medicine, they really scared us, and it truly can be that way.
Ali hvala Bogu, ja verujem da sve ove stvari koje smo radili prirodne, da su pomogle, njoj su prestali također bolovi koje je imala pre toga.
So we are really thankful to God that she was able to have reduction in pain and that she's so much better with this diet. So what is the diet? Koja je to dijeta otprilike? What is the diet?
Pa ovako, mi smo počeli više da koristimo beans.
So we started to use more beans.
Onda sam ja pravila neke razne sokove od koprive, od svega onog, od male jagode, šumske one.
So I started to make smoothies out of nettle and some small strawberries, some wild strawberries.
Više koristimo proteine, onda ove borovnice i sve te vrste male, kako se zove, ne cherry, blueberry.
Da. So she's using more blueberries and natural fruits and things.
Konkretno kod nje smo više koristili papaju, ananas, lubenica.
Pineapple, watermelon.
To voće ima te supstance koje njoj pomažu da se ta inflamacija umiri i smiri.
Because these had the substances that would reduce the inflammation.
Neko vreme smo bili izbacili bananu i jabuku, nažalost, jer imaju više tog prirodnog šećera, da, ali...
So we had to take out bananas and apples for her condition. It had some sugars that were not for her.
Uglavnom smo sve počeli prirodno da radimo, da spremamo. Nismo više kupovali, recimo, neke namaze, sve stvari koje su u kesama. To je sve bilo jako stresno i teško za nas da se naviknemo, ali u suštini to je bilo
Yeah, so we started to use natural substances more, and we eliminated packaged food, which was very stressful for all of us because we're not used to this, but it was very beneficial for her and us.
Izbacili smo sva ona ulja ranije što smo koristili.
We took out all the oils that we used to use in the past.
Ako je baš potrebno, onda koristimo avokadino ulje koje je hladno ceđeno.
So if we have to use oil, we use cold press avocado oil.
Ili maslinovo ulje koje...
Or olive oil cold press.
Da. Verovatno da postoji još dosta stvari koje sad trenutno ne mogu da se setim, nisam spremila. Također smo pravili, ipak pošto se radi o detetu i onda detetu brzo dosade neke stvari.
So we're still researching things, and because as a child, you know, things can get boring for a child to eat, and so we're still figuring out some new things we can add.
Jako interesantno je bilo, pravili smo susamovo mleko.
So it's very interesting, we made sesame milk.
Koje smo koristili za, recimo, neke poslastice i ovako da pije. I od susama običnog belog i od crvenog.
So we made sesame milk for some desserts and for drinking, but we also made it from black sesame and white sesame.
Nije koristila nikakve te suplemente ili tako nešto što se tiče tih nekih, recimo, cink ili magnezijum. Njena krvna slika je bila super i doktorica je bila iznenađena kako ima tako dobro, a da ne uzima suplemente.
So she wasn't taking any supplements of zinc, magnesium or anything like that, but the doctors were surprised how well her blood works appeared, even though she wasn't taking any supplements.
Također quinoa je bila počela da bude zastupljenija kod nas u ishrani.
So quinoa was also used by us, and
da, i uopšte te žitarice koje su hranljive, izbacili smo gluten.
So we removed gluten, but we included the grains that were very nutritious.
I to bi bilo, da, više preferira... Da. Da, također ako baš moramo nešto da kupimo, imamo tu aplikaciju koju su dosta ljudi počeli da koriste, gdje provjeravamo da li ima aditive nešto ili ne, da li je bezbedno za nas ili...
So we've started to use an app that shows if we do have to buy some food that's packaged, it will show what kind of additives they are and whether they will impact the health.
I način na koji je napravljeno.
And the way that it's made as well. Yeah.
Da. Također smo počeli više po preporuci naše doktorice koristimo kupus, sve vrste kupusa.
So at the suggestion of our doctor we started to use more cabbage, which was interesting.
Da, u suštini to je bilo to, a eto jedna isto bitna stvar, mi smo kod naše ćerke pronašli da njena žuč nije koristila te dobre stvari, a izbacivala je dobre masnoće, izbacivala je odmah u smeće. Znači nije uzimala da iskoristi njeno telo.
Žuč is liver, is it? Gallbladder. Oh, sorry. So her gallbladder was not using the fats, or
Pite me da nisam razumela.
Wasn't using the right, it wasn't processing the nutritious part, wasn't using it, the body wasn't using it from the gallbladder.
oh, okay.
Nije
So wasn't
prepoznavalo.
using the nutritious part. Yeah, processing it properly. So was there something wrong with her gallbladder too, or?
There's nothing indicative of that, but only the process part.
Yeah. Okay.
To smo mi rešili kroz ishranu, njen stomak se uredio i sada su rezultati drugačiji i bolji. Znači, njena žuč te dobre masnoće nije koristila, jer nama su potrebne i dobre masnoće.
So her gallbladder was not processing even the good fats. So now through diet, this has been remedied. So yeah.
Da.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Hvala puno.
Nema na čemu.
Okay. So that would be it for today. So today we have some food in the halls, and just come in the hall and we can mingle together and we can be together. I just want to have a prayer because we're all here, and just have a prayer for God to help us to use this information for our own benefit and also for our friends and families, because this is very precious information. Sad that not more people came, but I think that Isak did a very good job in explaining it very well for us to understand that this is the best way to go. So we'll just have a prayer for the food and also for the meeting. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for being with us and for providing us with such amazing bodies that can heal themselves with the right treatment. If we treat our bodies well, our bodies will work well for us as well. Thank you so much, and for helping all these people that had diseases or had different things happen to them, that you've been able to help them to find the right answers. And we want to praise you for all that you've done, and also that you'll bless the food that we're going to eat in the hall, and that you'll be with us until next time. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thank you very much.